Hey everybody, welcome back to Gideon Stuff. Today is a really special video for a few reasons. We're taking a look at a really awesome knife, the CJRB Scoria, and it's my birthday, so happy birthday to me. Anyways, this is a knife I'm really excited to review. Let's get right into it. Let's start with our measurements and size comparisons. The blade is 3.5 inches on the dot. I don't have my little ruler with me today, but there it is. You'll have to trust me. And let's get our size comparisons out. First off, here is our Rat 1. I'm up pivot to pivot. There we go. And here's our Rat 2. There we go. Falls in pretty perfectly between those two. I say that a lot about a lot of knives. You know, they fall into a mid-range between the Rat 1 and 2. It makes me wish the Ontario would release a Rat model of that size, but whatever. Okay, here it is against our flagship comparisons. There's the Spyderco Dm2. I almost called it the Benchmade PM2 because I'm an idiot. Here's the actual Benchmade, the Bug Out. So there we go. A little bit bigger than the Bug Out, but it's got some... Why are you not wanting to set up today, Bug Out? Whatever. There we go. Okay, and let's compare it against our Civivis, because, you know, this is a budget knife, and I compare everything against Civivis, obviously. First off, here's our Praxis. Wow. I don't know what's different about my camera angle today, but the Praxis sure isn't fitting on screen. And here's our Elementum. There we go. All right, let's go ahead and wrap this up. We'll compare it against some other budgety knives. First off, against the CJRB Feldspar, the large Feldspar, and another well-known CJRB, the Milea. There you go. Very comparable to the Feldspar. I heard a lot of people talking about this knife as, oh, it's just a Feldspar with a flipper tab. It's not. There are some key differences we'll talk about. And lastly, we'll compare it against a knife that I don't bring out enough, the QSP Hawk. These two, I think, are pretty close competitors. And one of my favorite budget knives ever, the Bestech Paladin. There we go. Awesome. How many size comparisons are too many? I'll let you guys decide. So what are we looking at here in terms of materials? So we have a stone-washed AR RPM 9 blade, which mine actually could probably use a little bit of a cleanup. And then we have beautiful denim micarta scales, titanium clip, titanium thumb studs, and titanium pivot collar. Steel liner lock. This particular version of this knife that you see here is a Knife Center exclusive. Knife Center has a few exclusives of this knife, which are really cool. But yeah, running on ceramic bearings, as you might expect. Let's go ahead and get over to the cutting footage, and we'll come and finish up this review. Alrighty, let's talk about the CJRB Scoria. Really excited to talk about this knife. So excited. Came all the way out to a really special location to do our cut footage. I mean, come on, guys. Do you know what I do for you? Do you know what I do to make content for this channel? You know how hard it was to get a table? Oh, you can't even see my table. You know how hard it was to get a table up here? Let me show you something. Let's go right up to the edge. Isn't that gorgeous? Okay, enough screwing around. Let's go cut some stuff. Alright, I lied to you guys. We're not going to cut anything just yet. We're going to talk about action. So the CJRB Scoria is running on ceramic ball bearings, as you might expect. And we have a couple different deployment methods. We have the thumb studs and a flipper. The action is very good. You can reverse flick it. My one complaint with the action is that there's no jimping on a flipper tab. Wish there was, but it does work good. You can push button it, but I prefer to just light switch the slipper tab. The detent at first I thought was a little bit too light for the flipper. It just kind of felt a little bit light when I was flipping it. But I can't really fail this. There was a partial failure, but it's a good detent. And it has to be a little bit light on the flipper to be tuned for the thumb studs as well. But honestly, it's a pretty perfectly tuned detent. The drop, really nice. Oh, so nice. Ta-da! Excellent, excellent action. How are the ergos? They're really good, actually. You can tell just kind of from the shape of this handle. A little skinnier here and gets fatter. Yeah, it's going to feel good in your hand. The handle is contoured. Put a knife in my face. The handle is contoured, but they're very thin. Like, this knife is super, super thin. But still, the ergos are very nice. You have this big choil here. You can definitely choke up into to do some work. The micarta feels good. Denim micarta, really, really nice. But yeah, pocket clip is not an issue in the hand at all. It's nice and fat and flat. Titanium clip feels nice in the hand. No problems there at all. Let's go ahead and now we'll do some cutting. Ha ha ha! Suckers, I lied to you again. We're going to talk about carry. It's a very light knife. It has a lot of internal milling. It's, again, very thin in every dimension. So it's not very heavy. And the clip works great. Titanium clips can sometimes be hit or miss. But this one goes in, comes out just fine. No complaints there. It's not like a discreet carry, especially with this golden clip. But, yeah. Really nice clip. And in case I didn't mention, just talking about that golden clip, this is a Knife Center exclusive version. Hence the all denim dress, since these are denim micarta scales. No, I'm just kidding. I've always rocked the Canadian tuxedo since high school. Hey Mike, over at Sharp & Blade, you're my go-to Canadian. What do you think? Okay, all right. Jokes aside, now we get to do some cutting. So blade here, we have a nice drop point. This is AR RPM 9. Blade steel, which I love AR RPM 9. Gets super sharp, holds its edge very well, and it's very easy to sharpen. Plus it's stainless, so that's really, really nice. Big fan of that. This knife is about 19 to 20 thousandths behind the edge, so like not like a laser beam, but perfectly fine. I find that to be an absolutely okay behind the edge reading. All right, let's cut some cardboard to demonstrate that sliciness, and you're going to see something here. Because the blade stock is so thin, this knife slices with the best of them. Whoops, if I don't go the cardboard. My fingers tilt up just a little bit. There we go. Good slicing, good slicing. Absolutely okay with that. Okay, let's go ahead and grab our little string here. Where's the end? Where's the end? There we go. Let's do a little pull through. Stay back, pool noodle. You'll get your chance. Really nice. Really, really nice. Now, let's tilt down. This is a very short table. That's my knee, and I'm not a very tall dude. There we go. Let's do some pushes. Remember, this is just to see how many strands the blade gets through. This is very tough stuff. One push. Okay. You know what? It did pretty well. Super thin blades don't typically do good at this test because they need to have some weight behind them to push all the way through this very tough material. But this made it all the way through one strand and halfway through another strand. So it's actually not super terrible. I'm sure if I gave it more power. Yeah, there we got through all of them except one, which is hanging on by just a few strands. So yeah, not a bad performance for such a thin blade. Okay, now let's see how well it is ground. Basically, what this test does is, if the blade is too thick behind the edge, if the geometry is off, it'll get caught. It'll like bind up in the pool noodle and won't feel really good. Let's see here. Whew. Yeah, that is nice. That is nice. We got some really good thin lifesavers out of that. Really good performance. No complaints there. Give you guys a little bit of time to look at that sexy beast. All right, let's head back to the table and finish off this review. Alrighty, so let's get right into it with what I'm liking and not liking about this really cool knife. First of all, I love the aesthetics of this knife. It is just a simple drop point blade, but I think it looks fantastic. This is exactly my favorite shape of drop point. Love the swedge they have going on here. Very thin blade, very thin knife overall. We'll talk about that later. Nice and tall. Obviously, I think this exclusive version looks amazing. I love the golden accents with the blue. You guys know I love blue. Love the finger choil. It's a very simple looking knife, but they've done it very well. It looks really, really good. So, big fan of that. Also, big fan of the name, Scoria. I'm a geologist, and I love anything rock themed. Scoria, of course, is a volcanic rock, of which we have a sample here. Honestly, the rock itself isn't super beautiful as compared to this knife, but still, I love that on a nerdy level. So yeah, that's awesome. Next thing I like are the Ergos. So when I heard that this knife, its kind of purpose was to be a super thin, easy to carry EDC, I was afraid that having it be really thin would make it uncomfortable, because oftentimes super thin knives can be uncomfortable in the hand, but this one isn't. And there's a few reasons for that. Number one, the handle is tall. Even though it is thin, let's bring out that feldspar. Let's close this up. Bring out that feldspar. Yeah, it's thin, for sure. But even though it's thin, the handle is tall. And so it does fill the hand to a degree. Plus, it's shaped very well. You have this beautiful... Just looking at this knife, you can tell that it fits well in your hand. And indeed, it does. You have this finger choil up here that you can get into. Very nice. This is a perfect finger choil. Big enough for my finger completely. I can do like this. I can do like this. I can get it in my fist and go to work like that. Very, very nice. Excellent ergos. While I was using this knife, I never had any occasion to feel like the ergos were lacking. And let's talk about the pocket clip. This is a great clip. One, it's fantastic in the hand. So titanium milled clip, which adds a little bit of fanciness to the knife, which is awesome. But it's also nice and fat and flat as well, which means in the hand it just disappears. In and out of the pocket, it works good. Sometimes milled titanium clips can be a little bit grabby. This one isn't. And it just goes so well with the contours of the handle, which I think I forgot to mention. The handles are contoured, even though they're, very skinny. Let's focus in on that. They are contoured. It's a little bit harder to tell because, again, so skinny, but they are contoured, and the liners are actually recessed, which is good. Hidden liners. I can't speak. So yeah, that's awesome. Speaking of those I keep trying to say hidden lanyard post because that's something I talk about a lot, but the recessed liners, something I was worried about was that this would only have the liner on one side for the lock and we just have my Carter or G10, but no, there's actually liners on both sides, full liners on both sides, which is crazy, but I like that. It gives it a little bit of strength, and for me that's just reassuring more than anything, I guess. Next thing, Love the pivot collars. I'm a big sucker for pivot collars. I love that CJRB does pivot collars. They're just really nice. The knife itself just looks very classy. I guess that's what we're going to go into next that I like. This knife feels classy with the titanium accents, the kind of low profileness, the thin design, the very good looking, the very good looking profile. My Giganotosaurus fell down. Stand up, buddy. There we go. It just looks really, really nice. And every version of this knife looks nice. Let's talk about that next. There are a bunch of different versions of this knife. I guess you call them stock versions or the original CJRB versions. There was, they both had blacked out blades with, one of them had that burgundy coral micarta handle and the other one had black G10. Those looked really good. I was going to get one of the burgundy micarta ones when I saw Knife Center drop their exclusives. I've said this before, I'll say it again. I think CJRB/Artisan does some of the cooler dealer exclusives out there. Every single one of their exclusives looks absolutely fantastic. You can tell they put in some work, try and make it feel nice and designed. And all the Knife Center ones look excellent. This was my favorite because of the blue, obviously. But, yeah, really, really great. So they all look fantastic, and there's a bunch of different versions. And we'll talk about price at the end of the video. The pocket clip, I forgot to mention, it is reversible. We'll talk about that more in a little bit, but it is reversible, so that's nice. The blade. I love AR RPM 9. It is a fantastic steel. I mean, it's a budget powder metallurgy steel. Whoever thought we'd be able to say that? So that's really, really cool. It's very easy to sharpen. As you can see here, or maybe you can't see my camera, sometimes difficult. I do have a mirror edge on this knife. Although it has a little bit of gunk on it. It's been beat a little bit. But yeah, I find it to be very easy to sharpen. It holds an edge very well. I mean, definitely not as good as some more premium steels, but it holds its edge well enough to compete with anything in the budget realm. It's stainless. And, yeah, it's just a good steel. Love the stonewash on this knife. Again, mine is a little bit smudged, but I love a good stonewash, and this one is, yeah, this stonewash can compete with the best of them. Really, really nice. Very good. And the blade itself being so thin means it's just a laser beam. It has a flat grind. Behind the edge thickness isn't like super thin. It's about 20 thousandths. In fact, it ranges from about 19 to 20 thousandths along the edge. So for me, that's thin enough for an EDC knife. But this slices like it's ground much thinner because of how thin that blade is. Again, let's bring out the rat too. That's what I always compare blade stock thickness to. Yeah, that's a thin knife. This slices so well. This blade shape works excellently for all kinds of EDC tasks. I love the way this knife performs. The Ergos help it to cut very well as well. Wow, I'm out of it today. But awesome. Next thing, the action. Multiple deployment methods, as you can see. And they all work really well. When I first got this knife and I was first playing with it, I felt like the flipper was a little bit, like the detent was a little bit light for the flipper tab. Just something about the way it flipped felt light. But I tried to fail this knife. And I can't, it's very hard to fail this knife. I failed it a few times, but only when I try really hard and do cheaters like I can do like that. But the detent is, I mean, it's hard to pull that out of there. It's got a very good detent, nice click, listen to this. Very nice detent, works good with the thumb studs. Works very good with a reverse flick. In fact, something that I thought was interesting was the reverse flick on this knife is very good, but I never used it while I was carrying this knife. I always went for the flipper tab or the thumb stud. But yeah, you know, really good deployment methods. Really like that. The drop. Yeah, that's what I like to see. That's good. No complaints there. And next thing, the access to the lock bar is very nice. They give you a good cutout here. They give you a chamfer on the lock bar. Good to get in there, easy to disengage it. Very, very nice. And the last thing I want to talk about on the good side is that this knife is very easy to carry. This is a very lightweight knife. It's a very thin knife. And you get a full-size knife. A 3.5-inch blade is a full-size knife. But you get it in a very lightweight, easy to carry package. I think that's going to mean a lot to a lot of people. So that's all the good. Let's go ahead and talk about what I'm not liking so much. The first nitpick I'm going to have with this knife is actually about the price. I usually save the talking about the price till the very end. We're going to talk about it right now real quick. If you guys have seen my Budget Knife of the Year video for 2021, you know this knife was on the list, but it did not take number 1. And the reason was because I do feel like it's a little bit pricey. The G10 versions of this knife are about $75, and the micarta versions are about $80. This puts this knife, at least the micarta versions, for me, are out of the budget category, and the G10 versions are right at the very top of the budget knife category. So I think the knife is worth it, honestly, but I will say the price is definitely, in fact, I think this is CJRB's most expensive knife. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. All right, moving on. I wish there was jimping up here. This flat area is just begging for some nice file-like jimping like we have here on the Paladin. That would just be so nice. I think it'd help the Ergos a lot. Right now, this is a comfortable place to put your thumb, but I really do wish that there was some jimping there. I think it would add a lot. But there isn't, so boo-hoo. Next thing. I wish there was jimping on the flipper tab. The flipper tab, honestly, is not my favorite flipper tab ever. It works. It really does work. Light switch, push button, it works. But I think it would work better if it had some jimping. It's a very smooth flipper tab. I can definitely see you missing it. I don't think I ever missed a flip while I was carrying this knife. But I could definitely see, if someone told me they kept missing flips with their Scoria, I would not doubt them at all. I would completely understand. So, yeah, that's definitely something. Next thing, I find it interesting that the non-exclusive versions of this knife all came with coated blades. CJRB loves coating their AR RPM 9. I find it so weird because it's a stainless steel. This is a D2 knife, and they have a stonewash on it, which stonewash does help a little bit with corrosion, but they put a black coating on a lot of their AR RPM 9 blades. In fact, I have a Gobi and a Feldspar in AR RPM 9, and they both have coated blades. I find that to be a little bit weird. I'm glad that, I think the coated blades look great, but I'm glad that Knife Center came along to give us a non-coated option. I think that's really, really cool. So, yeah. Next thing, I kind of wish they hadn't done this lanyard hole here. I kind of wish they'd done one of their, spinning back spacer lanyard holes like you see on things like the Rhea. I think that would have been really cool. Again, not a huge deal, but I got a nitpick because honestly there's not a whole lot about this knife I don't like. One thing I can definitely talk about though, with the pocket clip, you can see there are no visible screws. That's awesome. That keeps the knife looking classy. However, it does mean that if you're a lefty and you want to flip the clip to left side carry, you have to take the whole knife apart, which isn't great. It really isn't. So if you're left-handed, that's definitely a negative. If you're right-handed and you just leave it on this side, you're good to go, and you get a really, really nice looking presentation clip. So yeah, there we go. That action. Next thing, this is a really, really tiny nitpick, and it probably doesn't even matter. I wish that this side of the pivot was on this side, and this side was over here on the show side. That's something that on my Leah is the same thing. They had the tooled side over here, and I just flipped it over the other way, just because I thought it looked better the other way, and it does. That's like the tiniest little nitpick. You can disregard that if it doesn't matter to you. The hardware is minimal, but these screws back here are T6s, so that's something to keep in mind for sure. And that's honestly it. So let's go ahead and go into my final conclusions. My final conclusions are very, very positive. I love this knife. I really do. And in fact, to me, this is what an everyday carry knife should be. I love carrying this knife. It does everything I need it to do. It carries well. It looks great. Has a great performing blade. And so I'll be honest. If I wasn't a knife reviewer, and if I also wasn't a crazy knife collector, I would honestly be okay with this being my only EDC knife. Of course, I'd also want some fixed blades and a hard use folder, but for just regular EDC, I could be totally happy with just this. It's that good. Very, very pleased with this knife. And I'm really excited to see what CJRB has coming out in the future, because this knife to me feels pretty different from the Feldspar. It does feel more expensive, which it is, obviously. And I want to feel... I want to see CJRB doing more of this, kind of flexing, because this is a fantastic knife, and I'll be honest, this feels a lot more expensive than a lot of Civivis, even though there are Civivis nowadays that are easily as expensive as this knife. This knife does feel a little more premium, a little more special, and I love that so much. Yes, it's expensive. $80 is not nothing to drop on. I mean, for me at least, that's not super cheap, so it's not nothing, but gosh dang, you do get a really, really great knife for that money. Love the titanium accents. That's probably why the knife is so expensive. They went with all these titanium accents and micarta and stuff. I would honestly, if they would release a version of this knife that didn't have the titanium accents and it was more like their $35 knives, I think that'd be really cool as well. I'd be into that. But as it stands, this is a fantastic knife. Can I recommend it? Yes. If you've gotten this far in the video, obviously, the answer is yes. I can recommend this. Fantastic, fantastic knife. If you don't have one, you should get one. If you have one, cherish it and love it forever, and maybe get another one. But yeah, fantastic knife. Never going to leave my collection, and honestly, I have a hard time taking it out of my pocket. So, there you guys have it. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, leave it a like, comment below, and subscribe. Tell me what you think about this knife. And if you dislike the video, leave a dislike and tell me in the comments below why you didn't like the video, because I do read the comments. Anyways, I've been Gideon Stuff. I'll see you in the next video. Adios.